Over 24 hours is left until the end of the ceasefire negotiations continue. In Cairo, Israel has agreed to extend the Gaza fishing zone to 3 miles, but other issues are apparently unresolved. Kurdish forces are advancing on the strategic Mosul Dam in a joint operation to reclaim it from Islamic State militants who seized it 10 days ago. And U.S. police have fired smoke bombs and tear gas to disperse a crowd defying a curfew in St. Louis, Missouri, while the riots are spreading after the shooting of teenager Michael Brown inflamed racial tensions.
The news today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening. Just over 24 hours are left until the 5 days truce between Israel and Hamas expires. The sides are in Cairo negotiating a permanent deal so far, but it appears the chances of reaching one before the deadline are slim. Meanwhile, Israel has agreed to extend the Gaza fishing zone to 3 miles, but other issues remain unresolved. For the next 90 minutes, we will be with you with our correspondents on the ground from the Gaza border, Shai Ben-Ari, Amjad Abu Arafi and Maxime Perez, and from the town of Rishon LeZion in central Israel are Shahar Peled, Hisham Farid and Maxime and Lea Bordugo. And before we will dig in the first subject of the day, let's see how it looked in the last 24 hours.
À Gaza, il ne suffit pas que les armes se taisent, c'est déjà beaucoup. Il faut aussi que chaque peuple puisse vivre dans la sécurité.
רק אם יהיה מענה ברור לצרכים הביטחוניים שלנו, רק אז נסכים להגיע להבנות.
نتمسك بالمبادرة العربية المصرية ولا غيرها.
And joining me right now in the studio to discuss this matter and more are Dani Ayalon, I-24 News analyst and Israel's former Deputy Foreign Minister. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. And also Avi Sakharov, the Middle East analyst for the Times of Israel and for Walla website. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening, Lucy.
Where is the ceasefire, the current ceasefire, standing right now in Cairo, Avi?
Well, it seems like it's very close, but it's very far at the same time because both sides want to stop the fighting. I'm not that sure that they are interested in this agreement, the so-called agreement that the Egyptians proposed to both sides. And for me, I have the impression, maybe the weird impression, that in more than 24 hours we will see not an agreement, but a halt, maybe a few rockets that will be shot from the Palestinian side towards Israel, but then after a while, a halt in the fire, a halt in the fighting, and then just let it diffuse and nothing real will happen. We will stay in the same situation.
You know, Avi, the matter is a little bit strange because we saw Hamas that got into this operation. Hamas was isolated with money problems. Let's say a divided group between the military wing and the political wing. And in one way or another, what we're seeing for the last few days is actually, can we say, a stronger Hamas?
I'm not that sure that it's a stronger Hamas, not at all, because maybe in the last couple of days, then again, you see some kind of attempts to show unity inside Hamas. But even though they tried to show those unity signs, still what I hear are different voices coming from Gaza and different voices that are coming from Doha, from Qatar. I think that at the end of the day, we will decide whether Hamas was strengthened by this war or not, only a month or two or maybe 6 months or a year after the war will end. Right now we cannot really decide if Hamas will finish this war with some achievements like opening Rafah border, like opening an airport or a harbor. Yes, he will win this war. If he will not gain all these so-called achievements, at the end of the day he lost it, big time lost it.
So Israel,
yes.
Where is it standing right now? Because it seems that Benjamin Netanyahu is continuing the same line of being cautious, targeting the same targets that he wanted from the beginning of this operation and continuing in the same line.
And he gains a lot of sympathy and understanding in the global community, less so in the Israeli community here. People are beginning to question what are the objectives, what was the strategy, was there any grand plan, or are we just following through and being dragged?
Was there any grand plan?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And if there hadn't been the kidnapping and murdering of the 3 boys, and 3 yeshiva boys, I don't think we would have been in this situation today. We have to remember also that the first objective that Netanyahu declared was quiet for quiet, and then it was the tunnels, when it appeared that the tunnels became much bigger than everybody thought here in a strategic way. And after the tunnels, now it's again, we go back to quiet and some kind of arrangement. For Israel, and from Bibi Netanyahu's point of view, no arrangement is better than a bad arrangement, because we do not want to give now, Israel doesn't want to give now any victory, even a symbolic victory to Hamas. It's not good for Egypt, it's not good for Saudi Arabia or Mahmoud Abbas or for Israel. So now I think the dilemma is really of Hamas, what to do. Because I don't think, with all the bravado, that they have sustaining power for too long. I mean, they can rein in the rockets, but I don't think that Israel will tolerate it. And what I understand now is that for every rocket, Israel will respond massively and getting more assets from Hamas. Also, I believe that there is a built-up pressure that is not seen now in the Gaza Strip, but it may kind of come out to the surface very, very soon. So either Hamas will buckle in, will say, well, we won, and that's it, or if they will not want to compromise and they will go all out with the airport and seaport and 12 miles of fishing rights and everything else and the release of the terrorists of the Shalit deal, they won't get it. But if they get something which is more amorphic about the future, I think Israel can tolerate it. Because what is the building of a seaport or an airport? It's years to take. So you can start negotiating it in a month, and then a lot of things will happen.
And more than that, you started by saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is getting a lot of criticism right now inside Israel, and especially from the people who are living in the south. Let's move to the south to our I-24 News correspondent, Shai Ben-Ari. Shai, you are standing right now in the Israel-Gaza border. Just in the weekend, we saw the demonstrations that the people from the south came to Tel Aviv and made and said that they're, in one way or another, disappointed from the current situation. What are the voices that you're hearing today?
Right, Lucy. Basically, there's everybody here in this region really is waiting to see the outcome, of course, of the talks ongoing in Cairo. And, with another day of this formal 5-day ceasefire left, perhaps there is some sort of chance of finding a real resolution to the conflict, perhaps not from the statements coming out of both sides. But we also hear there are actually efforts ongoing to even extend this ceasefire further. We'll have to see how that works out. But of course, there's the question arises basically what happens if this ceasefire comes to an end? What happens after that? Or do we go back to a renewal of hostilities, or perhaps a new sort of balance settles in? Are we talking about a situation based on mutual deterrence, something that actually people in this area are used to? We're not talking about something new. That is basically the situation that has existed over the past number of years, with major conflict every number of years and then relative quiet in between. If that is the situation that we are now facing in the near future, I think that we can expect a lot of disappointment from the residents of this area. Basically, there was a lot of expectancy here that we would see some sort of resolution to the conflict that has been going on here, to basically the security issues that have been just a reality for a number of years here. And there was hope that we would see some sort of final resolution to that conflict. If we're talking about a new sort of mutual deterrence, once again, not new in fact, then I'm sure we'll see a lot of disappointment.
Yes, Shai Ben-Ari, thank you very much for this. And you also summed up the last 24 hours. Let's see it.
With little more than a day left to a 120-hour temporary ceasefire, it seems Israel and Hamas are still nowhere near reaching a settlement that will officially bring the current conflict to a close. As talks in Cairo continue, reports have noted progress on the issues of goods and people crossing the border in and out of Gaza, but it appears both sides are very far apart on the matter of Palestinian demilitarization as well as Hamas's demands regarding the construction of air and seaports.
The Israeli delegation to Cairo from the first day is working under very clear instructions to stand steadfast on Israel's security needs. Only if there is a clear solution to our security needs, only then will we be prepared to come to an understanding.
According to Palestinian reports, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has been pressuring Hamas leader Khalid Mashal to accept the Egyptian proposal currently on the table.
Our goal is to stop the fight and to stick to the Egyptian initiative and not any other one.
However, both Israel and Hamas have stated that they are also open to a return to the battlefield if a resolution is not achieved.
As long as calm does not return, Hamas will continue to sustain very harsh strikes. If Hamas thinks that we cannot withstand it for an extended period, it is mistaken.
It remains a very real possibility that the current conflict will end with no official agreement in place, though it is likely Israel will agree to humanitarian aid entering the Strip in any case. In this scenario, quiet will depend on deterrence, but past experience suggests it may not last for long.
Avi, in one way or another, we are hearing that Israel is interested in continuing the status quo, that Hamas will continue controlling the Gaza Strip. Why? Why should Israel let Hamas continue controlling the Gaza Strip?
I'm going to say here something that might sound problematic. I think that Israel fell in love with the idea of the controlled Hamas controlling Gaza, meaning restrained Hamas that is in control of the Gaza Strip, not letting other factions or organizations to shoot rockets. And in that way, Israel doesn't need to do any kind of concessions like freezing the settlements or withdrawing from areas because it's a Hamas, it's a terrorist organization. So in a way, it was very convenient for the state of Israel, the reality that we have been facing before this war started. Quiet from Gaza, a terrorist organization over there, no need to negotiate or to make concessions, and at the end of the day, the same organization that is calling for the elimination of the state of Israel is the one that is making sure that there will be quiet between the two entities.
But at the end of the day also, the same terror organization that Israel emphasized that it won't sit down and talk with, Israel is sitting down with Egypt in the middle and actually talking with it.
Of course, but it was negotiating with Hamas, then again, not directly, but under the table. I can give you one example that sounds weird, but it is a very good example in order to understand the status quo that was between the two entities. Whenever the Israelis had some kind of an indication that one of the small factions is about to shoot a rocket towards Israel, it would pass the information to the Egyptian intelligence. The Egyptians would pass it to the Hamas authorities. They would go and arrest the same terrorist that was planning to shoot a rocket. If Hamas wouldn't do it, well, the Israelis would send some kind of an airplane or something like that would attack one of Hamas's compounds, but only after making sure that no one of Hamas's forces is present inside this compound in order not to kill anyone of Hamas. That's the way that it worked, the way that the two sides were negotiating and passing information.
It's more than negotiating, it's actually coordinating about what is happening exactly in the Gaza Strip, which is maybe in one way or another, it's the same understanding that Israel has with the West Bank with Mahmoud Abbas. And now, Danny, explain to me, how come after so long that Benjamin Netanyahu is the Prime Minister of Israel, he didn't initiate even one meeting with Mahmoud Abbas?
Well, I guess it's because of Israeli politics. I don't think it was wise for him to do that. I think it would have gained a lot of good support and goodwill in Washington and everywhere else in the world had he done it. I think also with the meeting of the minds, maybe they could have built some mutual trust, because with all the problematics that the PA and Abu Mazen has towards Israel, I would say on security issues, he has been quite reliant, and especially after the kidnap of the three boys, the security apparatus of the Palestinian Authority really cooperated with the Israeli ones. And also now, today, Abu Mazen and Bibi Netanyahu are on the same side against Hamas. So it is again, I think it's only because of politics here. But if I were the Prime Minister of Israel, I would certainly go and meet him.
Yeah, we're hearing today Mahmoud Abbas even saying that there is no initiative except the Egyptian initiative. So he's telling Israel in one way or another, and correct me if I'm wrong, I am supporting you. I am next to you. Maybe it's for the millionth times that he's telling Israel that he is on their side, and Israel in one way or another is ignoring it.
It is ignoring, and it's quite fascinating to see the joint interests here between the PA, between the Palestinian Authority and the State of Israel. For the simple fact that both sides not only agree that Hamas is a danger for the Palestinian Authority and for the State of Israel, but also they understand that right now the American administration is doing quite a damage here in trying to negotiate from their own side with the Qataris and the Turks against the Egyptian proposal. So what they're saying actually is that Abbas is saying, look, the only initiative right now is the Egyptian one. The Israelis are saying we're only negotiating through the Egyptians, and they share this interest. And I need to dare you here. I mean, I need to challenge here.
Okay.
The president of Egypt, that maybe at some point, one day, a few months after the war will end, maybe we will see the president of Egypt initiate something like a peace negotiations plan or some kind of a international summit calling both sides, and both sides will follow his, I wouldn't say orders, but his call to come and to meet. They wouldn't follow necessarily the call from Barack Obama, president of the US, but they will follow Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the president of Egypt.
So they will follow go after Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Where does it put the United States? How come the United States is actually taking the side of Turkey and Qatar and not seeing the strategic ally that is being managed right now in the Middle East with Saudi Arabia, with Egypt, and with Israel and Mahmoud Abbas?
The United States, under President Obama and his administrations, is at a loss. I mean, I wouldn't say the United States is still, from objective point of view, is the superpower. There's no match to the United States, not Russia, not China put together. But it's not enough to have the capabilities. You have to have the will to employ this. And under President Obama, the perception is that the United States is withdrawing. Now, why would Obama prefer the Qataris and Turkish over the Egyptians is something which is an enigma. It's such a mistake. First of all, if you remember, Lucy...
Money or ego?
I think it's ideology. I'll tell you why. If you remember, the United States, Obama was against Sisi's administration. Remember that they preferred the Muslim Brotherhood, who supposedly won the election after Mubarak was gone. 3 weeks it took to decide who won. Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State at the time, came to Cairo, and all of a sudden the decision was, and the declaration was, the Muslim Brotherhood won. They have an ideology. Obama has an ideology that the Muslim Brotherhood is part of the solution and not part of the problem. I think he thinks that they are much better than the ISIS or Al-Qaeda or the type. And why does he think this? Because Erdogan, which is also a Muslim Brotherhood, the AKP is the Turkish Muslim Brotherhood, and he is the, I would say, the foreign leader that Obama consults with the most. So if I look at that, I put if you can connect the dots, this is the reason he prefers Qatar and Turkey.
So is it so? Because if it's like that, if I'm following what you're saying, so maybe Israel's following what the United States is doing and actually choosing Hamas as being part of the solution and not being part of the problem.
Maybe Israel is not looking for real solutions. I mean, I think that we heard so many times the Benjamin Netanyahu surroundings talking about problems that need to be managed and not to be solved. In a way, what Israel was trying to say for years and years, we have a conflict here that cannot be solved with the Palestinians, so maybe we can manage it in a way, meaning to keep things quiet. That was the strategy. That was the leading strategy from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meaning we need quiet vis-a-vis the West Bank, we need quiet with the Gaza Strip, and not more than that. Not peace, not war.
That you want to tell me that Israel doesn't understand the fact that you cannot disconnect the Gaza Strip from the West Bank? You cannot disconnect the Palestinian people and put them in two different places, or to initiate a third country or three-country solution?
I'm not that sure that at this point, I agree with you. I think that, there is quite a big difference here between Gaza and the West Bank. I think that Hamas is managing his own issues, doesn't care about the PA. It doesn't want to hear about the West. It does want to hear about the West Bank because it wants to take control of the West Bank. But for the meanwhile, they are managing their own issues as a different state, as a different entity. So on the ground, we are facing already some kind of a situation in which we're facing three-state solution, or three states on the ground, not a solution. The question is, then again, how can we solve the problem of Hamas? I'm not that sure that it's solvable, but I think that the only hook that was given to the Israeli government was the so-called unity government from the Palestinian side. And the minute that Mahmoud Abbas started or founded this government, that was the second when Benjamin Netanyahu called it a terrorist government and denied it completely.
I'm trying to look at the day after. Let's take the scenario that the ceasefire and this initiative won't be the solution. Where would Israel be in front of Egypt?
Well, this depends upon who rejects the initiative. I don't think it will be Israel. I believe if the deal will not go through, it will be because of Hamas. And I think now there is really a strategic alliance between Israel and Egypt. It's something which is unbelievable, but I would say the unintended consequence of the entire flare-up is that Israel and Egyptian relationship have now grown so strong. Now, there are two questions. First of all, how will this Operation Protective Edge finish? And it could finish with some kind of arrangement, which would be like the pillar of fire, maybe a little bit some changes, with an understanding to negotiate on a long-term arrangement of demilitarization and building the ports, let's say. But this is for a long term. If there isn't an arrangement, then I think what Avi said is that the Hamas will be deterred. So it's either arrangement through deterrence without a formal understanding or with formal understandings. In any case, if there is some kind of arrangement with formal understanding and then talking about in the future demilitarization and the ports, that would really lead the way into a much bigger initiative that the Saudis want, that Sisi want, the international community, and then you can talk about some kind of a initiative maybe on the basis of the Saudi initiative, where Sisi would like to bring the Palestinian Authority and Israel together for a much bigger plan.
So let me ask the question to the Palestinian side, to Hamas side. Can Hamas afford itself, if I'm connecting this to my first question to you, can Hamas afford itself to decline and to refuse to agree in the Egyptian initiative?
Yes, it can. I mean, it is a bad option for them.
Who will be its ally afterward?
No, Egypt is not their ally. I mean, Egypt, it's the enemy for them. Egypt is hunting down Hamas, it's closing down the borders, it's closing the tunnels. Egypt is the one which is responsible for the struggling or the choking of Gaza, economically speaking.
But they don't see Egypt as maybe their only solution right now?
Well, partially yes. This is why they insist on a harbor, meaning, they could have insisted on opening the Rafah passage. Why don't they do it? Because they're afraid that even if the Egyptians will agree to open up Rafah, then after a few weeks, the Egyptians will say, look, we have some kind of a terrorist threat right now, so we need to close it for 6 months, for a year. They want to stay independent, meaning they want to have their own port, a harbor that Egypt cannot touch and cannot close.
Okay, so we asked the Israelis, do you think Israel should let an airport and a seaport be built in Gaza? Let's see what they had in mind.
On the one hand, I think they deserve to live a normal life. On the other hand, I'd really like them to be part of the Israeli state.
Under no circumstances should we let them build a port, because this would help them bring in all the weapons they want to bring into Gaza.
How do you expect peace with Israel as long as they don't have freedom and calm? We need to give them everything and open everything so they can live quietly.
I think it's not possible. Today they ask for something small, tomorrow they'll ask for something bigger.
This will complicate us and will pull us into a bad situation.
Yes, we should. Everyone has a right to live. A port is a lifeline for every country with a sea.
You know, sometimes I'm told that maybe money is the solution to everything. Maybe economy is the solution to everything. Who's going to put the money in the Gaza Strip? Who's going to find the solution to put the check on the table and to say, okay, I'm going to give you the chance?
Well, one thing I can assure you, it's not going to be Hamas. Hamas is the one that ruined Gaza Strip, but it's not the one that is going to rehabilitate Gaza Strip. The money is probably going to come from the international community, which will, from its turn, pass it to the Palestinian Authority government, the new government headed by Rami Hamdallah that Mahmoud Abbas appointed in order to rehabilitate the Gaza Strip. But it's not going to be Hamas. And Hamas, then again, I think that this war at the end, although we hear we won, even some Israelis are saying Hamas won, it's very early to say, to define that Hamas had won. I think that in a couple of months, maybe 6, maybe 12 months, we will see that Hamas is losing popularity very fast, following what will happen in Gaza Strip.
So this, and before we're finishing, can lead to maybe bettering the situation of Benjamin Netanyahu, the current situation of Benjamin Netanyahu in the public arena, in the political arena, in one way or another?
Absolutely. I don't think that at this point it matters much because there is not election in the offing. There is no interest for anyone in the coalition, except maybe Bennett, to have now elections because they're all going to lose. So if we do not have elections now, and elections will be not before 2016, then by that time there is enough time to judge. And if Gaza will stay quiet, then I think this will work towards Benjamin Netanyahu advantage. If not, then his Mr. Security will be tarnished, and then he will have a major problem to be re-elected.
What are the chances that we will see at the end of this current tunnel some kind of meeting between Benjamin Netanyahu and Mahmoud Abbas?
I would be surprised to see that, but we are in the Middle East and miracles do happen. So maybe something will happen out of this war in Gaza. I think that we hear different voices from the cabinet. Maybe not Netanyahu himself, but the people inside the cabinet, like Yair Lapid, like Tzipi Livni, are talking in different voices, much more aggressive regarding the need of Israel to renegotiate with Mahmoud.
But there's one last point, Lucy.
30 seconds.
Okay, that the meeting is not just dependent on Bibi Netanyahu.
Oh, 15 seconds.
If Mr. Abbas will raise the stakes and put preconditions like settlement freeze and all that, the meeting will not take place.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Small break, and I'll be back. Just over 24 hours is left until the end of the ceasefire negotiations continue in Cairo. Israel has agreed to extend the Gaza fishing zone to 3 miles, but other issues are apparently unresolved. Kurdish forces are advancing on the strategic Mosul Dam in a joint operation to reclaim it from the Islamic State militants who seized it 10 days ago. And U.S. police have fired smoke bombs and tear gas to disperse a crowd defying a curfew in St. Louis, Missouri, while the riots are spreading after the shooting of teenager Michael Brown inflamed racial tensions. Yes, and we're back with Iraq. In Iraq, Kurdish and U.S. forces are advancing on the strategic Mosul Dam in a bid to recapture it from Islamic State militants who seized it 10 days ago. This comes as the political chaos that paralyzed Iraq may finally be ending. I-24 News reporter Ayman Siksik has the story.
A new turn of events is taking place in Iraq today, as U.S. and Kurdish forces are reportedly advancing on the Mosul Dam. The joint operation to reclaim the dam from Islamic State militants entails U.S. airstrikes and a ground military action carried out by the Peshmerga, the armed Kurdish fighters.
We must resist. We must reclaim Bashika by any means. Hopefully, with the help of God and the strength of the Peshmerga on this front line, we will retake Bashika with minimal losses.
The dam in the city of Mosul is a strategic stronghold as it supplies water and electricity to northern Iraq. Islamic State combatants had taken control of the dam earlier in August. But sources in the Iraqi government are warning that collaborations of this kind with the US will result in the destruction of Iraq. On Saturday, German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier visited a temporary shelter for Christian refugees at Mar Yusuf Church in the city of Erbil and addressed the volatile humanitarian situation in Iraq.
Spent already €4.5 million for humanitarian aid, and the German cabinet has decided on Wednesday this week that we are spending another €20 million for humanitarian aid. Yes.
Deposed Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki leaves behind a legacy of profound sectarianism, which the US-backed al-Abadi, Iraq's new leader, is expected to reverse. Iraq's most influential cleric, Grand Ayatollah al-Sistani, spoke in support of the new Prime Minister.
Without a doubt, the completion of the process to fill the 3 presidential posts and the regional and international welcome is a rare and positive opportunity to solve all Iraq's problems, especially the political and security ones.
But as the US deepens its involvement in the country's state of affairs, the Iraqi people, still besieged by the Islamic State's continuous attacks, seemed doubtful about the prospect of a new hope.
And joining me right now from Erbil is via Skype is journalist Sofia Barbarani. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
So, Sofia, what is the feeling in Erbil today?
Well, there is a clear increase in the amount of internally displaced persons who have come in from the rest of Iraq. The neighborhood I live in is Ankawa, a Christian neighborhood, and we have gotten both Christians and Yazidi huge influx. There is a clear sense of there's a sense of panic in a way, especially among the residents themselves. They don't really know what to do with the situation, but there's also a lot of support from the local Kurds.
So, Sofia, are there a lot of testimonies of the actions of the ISIL?
Well, I spent the afternoon today with a group of Yazidis who had actually arrived to Erbil 1 or 2 days ago from Bashika. And they didn't actually witness the ISIL coming into Bashika, but they talked of family members who had encountered the group and were forced to flee. And as we all know, were then forced to flee to Sinjar Mountains. There was a stark sense of sadness and a lot of homesickness, really. I asked them, do you feel at home here in Kurdistan? Because many of them consider themselves Kurdish Yazidis. And 99% of them said, no, all we want to do is go home.
Sofia, I will ask you a personal question. Do you feel safe?
I feel safe. Erbil, since the moment I stepped into the city 10 months ago, has always been very safe. There have clearly been, there's been a heightened sense of panic, especially among the expat community in the past 2 months. A lot of us have left. Most of us who have stayed are journalists, but something like 80% of the expat community in Erbil has left. Personally, I feel completely safe in the city.
From what you're seeing, do you see any end to this current crisis?
The humanitarian crisis, I don't see end anytime soon. I think there will have to be a lot more support coming in internationally. And now, just now, after the hundreds of thousands of Yazidis and that situation, only now we see the international community actually waking up and offering their help. But the Kurdistan region is under so much stress because they have taken the brunt of the not only the Syrian refugees who arrived here 2 years ago, but now the internally displaced persons who are coming in from Iraq. I don't see a close end in sight, unfortunately.
Yes, Sofia Barbarani, take care of yourself, and thank you very much for this conversation with us.
Thank you.
And we're moving to Iran, something that maybe we forgot in the last few months. The Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Yukiya Amano, has arrived in Iran and met with President Hassan Rouhani. Amano's visit comes as world powers continue to negotiate with the Islamic Republic on a permanent deal over its contested nuclear program. These talks face a November deadline after an interim deal was struck last year. And right now, joining me in the studio, Mayor Javed Anfar, Iranian politics lecturer at IDC Herzliya. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Lucy. Thank you.
So we forgot a little bit about Iran, but we shouldn't have, because Iran is playing a major role with everything that is happening right now in the Middle East.
The Iranians, according to reports, are cooperating with the Kurdish Peshmerga forces to coordinate attacks against ISIL forces. There were even reports that they were helping them direct their attacks on where to attack the ISIL. But of course, the nuclear talks, it's important. There are reports that the IAEA has that Iran in the past has worked on the military part of its nuclear program. Iran has to answer them by August 25th. And I think one of the reasons why Amano, the head of the IAEA, went to Tehran today was to pressure Rouhani. By judging by Amano's words, he actually seemed impressed. But let's see if Iran actually delivers an explanation as to what it was doing.
Was there any progress in the last few months?
No, not really. But there wasn't any regress either. I think we were expecting where we expected to be. Look, there's many years of animosity. There's a lot of room for doubt regarding what Iran's done in the past. So we now have a deadline, the 25th of August. The talks were extended. We now have until the 24th of November. I think if anything is going to happen, it's probably going to be at the very last moment. But to be honest with you, Israel is at a win-win here. If Iran agrees, I think it's going to be good in the long run for Israel. If Iran doesn't agree, I think it's going to be the biggest blow to the Iranian economy, and I think that's actually going to make a lot of people happy here.
You mentioned the Iranian economy. What is right now the current situation of the Iranian economy?
Well, Rouhani has contained the danger. When he took office, Iran's economy was contracting. Instead of growing, was contracting by 6.9%. Now it's just minus 1.9%. So he took it down from 6.9 to 1.9. When he took over office, the inflation was 40%. Now it's something like 20%. But to be honest with you, after what Ahmadinejad did to Iran's economy, it's not too difficult to look good. But he took over a train wreck. And he seems to be trying to put things in order. But as long as these sanctions exist, and as long as Ayatollah Khamenei doesn't let him reach a deal with the Americans, he's going to limp economically, because no country can grow economically with such strong sanctions. And to be honest with you, I don't think the Iranians expect the Russians and the Chinese to come to their help if they don't deliver at the negotiation table.
Well, it's always interesting with Iran. Mayor Javed Anfar, I hope that we had a little bit more time, but we will. Thank you very much for coming to the studio. And we're moving to the United States a week after a young African-American named Michael Brown was shot dead in Ferguson, Missouri. Outrage is spreading across the United States. Police in St. Louis suburb have declared a state of emergency, but the protests continue. I-24 News reporter Uwe Shapiro has more.
The city of Ferguson, Missouri is under curfew after violence escalated in the last few days following the death of Michael Brown, an African-American young man who was shot by police officers.
I signed an order declaring a state of emergency and ordering the implementation of a curfew in the impacted area of Ferguson. Again, this is not to silence the people of Ferguson or this region or others, but to contain those who are drowning out the voice of the people with their actions.
Numerous procedures to ease the tension have been taken by the authorities here, but it seems that the outrage is unstoppable. At least 11 people were arrested during a mass protest this weekend. The police has also fired tear gas to disperse the protest. The demonstrators accused the police of racial discrimination and highlight the fact that young Brown was unarmed when shot and did nothing but disobey an officer's call to move onto the sidewalk. The police released a video showing 18-year-old Brown looting a grocery store just before the incident. But this just increased the anger.
So whatever that took place there had nothing to do with an individual getting down on his hands and knees, raising his hands in the air and saying, "Don't shoot." This is a universal call for I surrender.
As opposed to other incidents in the past, such as the Rodney King and Trayvon Martin affairs, the protesters are not waiting until injustice is done inside the courtroom, but want justice now. And as the protests spread to major cities like New York and Los Angeles, a curfew may just not be enough to stop the anger.
And joining me right now on Skype is CBS correspondent Brittany Noble. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, good evening to you too.
So, Brittany, how is the populations of Ferguson accepting the curfew?
Well, you know, I went there this morning and there was hardly anybody out. There was a few people that were up early this morning walking to their cars since they couldn't drive their car into the area that the curfew was being held at. But for the most part, I think people some people did have to fight it, but for the most part, I think it was okay. And from some of the neighbors that I spoke with today, they said that they think that this needed to happen.
What do you mean by this needed to happen? What do they mean by that?
Well, some of the neighbors in the area just think that the violence has become out of control. You have people, oftentimes, we've been hearing a lot of the problems, the looting, the burglaries are from people that are outside the area. And it's just a way for police to just kind of watch over who's coming in and out of the neighborhood and just kind of control the crowds better. And so some of the people, I can't say that for everybody, but I know some of the people are pleased with this curfew.
So what steps should be taken to ease down the tensions right now?
You know, I don't know what steps will need to be taken to ease the tension, but I do know that there's a lot of people that are still angry that they don't have answers in Mike Brown's death. And I know that a lot of people tell us that they're going to continue to protest until they get some answers. So I don't see this dying down anytime soon.
Brittany, it's the second time that let's say, this kind of thing happens in the United States in 1 year. How come? How come this phenomena still exists in 2014?
You know, unfortunately, that's not something that I can necessarily answer. I've just been really focused on this case. This Mike Brown case since the shooting. What's the bigger picture? What can we get out of this at the end of the day? I'm not sure yet, but I think that those answers will be coming very quickly.
So, you know, it's like maybe one of the biggest things when we talk about the United States, it's about how liberal it is and maybe how tolerant it is. But when you're seeing that race issues still are surfacing in 2014, it's kind of worrying in one way or another.
Yeah, it's very difficult for a lot of people that I've spoken with, and I mean, even kids, you know, tell me their stories. Like people that tell me that live in the Canfield apartment complex that's near the place where Mike Brown was shot and killed. Even some people there keep talking about they feel like they've been profiled by police. They feel like police are judging them based off of their looks, their appearance, and so I know a lot of their concerns were just feeling like because they are black men that they've been targeted. And so I know that's why they're really protesting. So for them, I'm sure, yes, it's disappointing for them that this is something that they're having to fight in 2014.
Yes. So first of all, Brittany Noble, thank you very much for this, joining us from CBS in Missouri. Thank you very much. Yes, and now we're moving to Ukraine. The situation in the east of the country is escalating once again as pro-Russian rebels reportedly downed a Ukrainian military plane. This comes as Ukrainian officials announced they have regained control of strategic points in Luhansk. I-24 News reporter Uwe Shapiro has more.
The crisis in Ukraine further entangled Sunday as rebels reportedly shot down an Ukrainian fighter jet in the Luhansk region. At the same time, Ukrainian forces are increasing their offensive in the eastern regions and are recapturing more strategic strongholds from the rebels.
Yesterday, after a fierce battle in the residential area of Bolshaya Vergunka in Luhansk, the anti-terror operation forces restored control of the building of the Zovtnevi neighborhood police station and raised the state of flag of Ukraine on it.
As the battle continues, Russia's attempt to influence it is moving forward. Part of the Russian humanitarian aid convoy approached the Ukrainian borders Sunday, but appeared unlikely to cross into the Ukraine immediately, since the Red Cross said it did not receive all the necessary approval for it to enter.
The two governments, Ukraine and Russia, have now worked together, and we're pleased to have observed how closely they have worked together in order to make the paper trail and the customs and the security inspection of the convoy possible.
The Russian, Ukrainian, German and French foreign ministers are set to hold a meeting in Berlin on Sunday. German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier said a new political impulse is needed to stop further escalation. But as the fighting continues, these new politics are hard to find.
Yes, and now to economy. Yes, and joining me right now is Alex Koneman. Good evening, Alex. Good to have you back again.
Good evening.
We can say two Israeli prides.
Yes.
Israel can be
proud of itself.
Yeah, proud in two different cases.
To some extent. Well,
Apple and Yahoo, right?
Yes. Well, the Yahoo event is they purchased a company named Clarity Ray, which only has 6 employees, so it's really a tiny garage operation. And the interesting thing is that advertising is going through an earthquake today, because in the past you used to see advertising, very brutal advertising for items that were not interesting, say diapers. So whenever somebody presents a diapers ad for myself, I mean, I'm completely uninterested. And today the point is that they want to use laser advertising. So if I'm on Yahoo and you want to advertise something and you pay, and Yahoo tells you, gives you my profile, and so you pay money to advertise something to me. But many companies put this piece of software on my computer so that you pay for the ad arrives at the computer, the software trashes it and puts another ad. So if you're Air France, I might see the ad for falafel or for British Airways or what have you, which is very frustrating for you because you pay for something that is not delivered. And of course for Yahoo, because its customers are frustrated. So this company has a sophisticated piece of software that can identify these type of events and prevent them.
And on the other side, let's talk a little bit about Apple that updated the leadership page, and we can say it, and an Israeli Arab citizen is
from
actually
Haifa.
in the headlines there.
Yeah, I'm very happy about this because...
Especially in these days in Israel.
Especially in these days, but even before that, because there is something interesting in Israel, and the thing is that I mean, first of all, the story is the following: that an Arab Israeli was nominated. I mean, became Apple VP for hardware platform, which is a very important position. So, if you talk from a technological point of view, because there was this image that the world is flat, that geography doesn't matter. Well, the world is not flat, and we have something that is called clusters. For instance, you have Hollywood, which is a cluster, and you have Wall Street, which is a cluster, and we have a tiny cluster. I mean, it's not Silicon Valley, it's Silicon Valley, and there we actually specialize in hardware. The good news about Israel is that Arab students are not persecuted in Israeli universities. On the other hand, once they graduate, they have great difficulty, particularly in high-tech, in receiving positions. And there are two reasons for that. One is because much of the high-tech industry is related to defense, and the other is simply prejudice. And the fact that Johnny, that's the way he...
Yeah, his name is Johnny. Actually got in, with the, let's say, the current speech, or let's say the current Israeli atmosphere that we're seeing, this is really a bright, shining star and something optimistic for the Israeli society.
It's so important, both for brilliant Arab students who can deliver things, and I've met them in academia, and also for Israel. So it's really, because it was so frustrating in the last weeks with the
with everything that is
With the
happening here. But
racism
yes,
and everything,
I
so
think that this is the perfect example that Israeli Arab, maybe Israel can take this and see that
We see
Israeli
this in
Arabs are good
medicine and-
work power. Alex Coleman, thank you very much for
Thank
this.
you so much.
And if we're talking about Israeli Arabs, let's give you another look. A wedding is usually considered a happy union of lovers, but today this kind of celebration is overshadowed by dozens of loud objectors to a union between a Muslim man and a Jewish woman in Israel. I-24 News correspondent Shahal Peled has the story.
It was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, but instead the wedding of Mahmoud Mansour and Moral Malka is at the center of the latest raging dispute to grip Israel.
I want to live my life without anyone interfering. Continue life as I live them today. I'm happy and hope all our guests will arrive and there won't be any friction.
21-year-old Moral decided to convert from Judaism to Islam and marry Mahmoud after 5 years together. But their decision to publish their wedding invitation on the web and celebrate in a large Jewish city in the center of Israel generated anger and objection. A radical right-wing organization called Lahava, Flame, which calls to stop the intermarriage between different religions, has decided to protest against the wedding at the wedding.
I have nothing personal against Moral and Mahmoud, but we are the Jewish people, and this is a case of assimilation. We're gradually killing the Jewish people by assimilation, and this is our protest against it.
Earlier Sunday, a court order allowed the demonstration to take place outside the wedding hall, but even Israeli President Reuven Rivlin acknowledged the couple's right to unite.
A red line has been crossed between freedom of speech and incitement. Mahmoud and Moral from Jaffa decided to get married. The incitement against them is worrying. Not everyone needs to rejoice with them, but everyone needs to respect them.
A mixed marriage between a Muslim Arab and a Jewish woman isn't a new phenomenon in Israel. According to New Family NGO, in the past 50 years, the number of mixed marriages between Jews and non-Jews has increased by 200%, and today 1 out of every 10 couples living in Israel is a mixed couple. A survey they conducted showed that 35% of secular Israelis object to a mixed marriage, and 95% of religious Jews would not like to see a marriage between a Jew and a non-Jew take place. But not only Lahava is demanding the wedding be called off. Life-threatening messages and police orders have obliged Mansour to hire some 30 bodyguards to protect the couple and their guests, whose only wish is to celebrate love and unity in a country ridden with seemingly endless inner conflicts.
Yes, and joining us right now from Rishon LeZion in the center of Israel is our I-24 News correspondent Shahal Peled. Shahal, good evening. I cannot believe that some people are actually demonstrating in front of this wedding, something that is maybe unbelievable and really making me very angry.
Yes, Lucy, this is a very hectic evening, quite chaotic, and I can't remember another wedding by between two unknown people here in Israel that has generated such a debate. Behind me, you can actually see a protest which is against the initial demonstration that started here of right-wing activists protesting against this wedding, against two lovers united because one is Muslim and one is formerly Jewish. She converted into Islam, and still many of these religious people don't believe this is a right step and don't believe she has a right to do this. But on the other hand, in a spontaneous gathering, some 100 people behind me came here with flowers and balloons, wishing congratulations to the couple and trying to open their way to the newlyweds here inside the wedding hall, as heavy police forces around us try to dissolve both groups. The court order today said that the right-winged activists could keep only 200 meters distance from here. This is hard to maintain, and so we will keep updating you for any clashes going on here in this wedding.
Yes, Shahal Peled, thank you very much for this unbelievable Israel 2014. Preventing people from getting married because they have different religions. Unbelievable. Let's go to sports. Yes, and to make me smile a little bit more is our I-24 News Jonathan Regev. Good evening.
That is what I'm here for.
Please make me smile after this.
Yes.
Please. And we start with Parisien Saint-Germain. I love to see it.
Saint-Germain.
Yeah,
French
Paris
league.
Saint-Germain.
And you know what? Here we see them. How strong is Paris Saint-Germain? We can see from this minute. Zlatan Ibrahimovic gets injured, gets off the pitch. He's the replacing captain and the big star because the main captain, Thiago Silva, is also injured. But still, Paris Saint-Germain were way, way better than the rivals Bastia. Even without Thiago Silva, even without Zlatan Ibrahimovic, they beat Bastia 2-0. They tied their first game. Yes, he could go to gymnastics after football. And this is Edison Cavani with a beautiful second strike. Paris Saint-Germain really, really strong. If they have two of their big stars out and they still win 2-0, that just shows how strong they really
Paris
are.
Saint-Germain can say, we are not Argentina. We don't rely only on Messi.
Pretty much, yes. What would Hassan Nasrallah say about this?
What would Hassan Nasrallah say about this?
Yes, yes.
You are the one who is for Argentina and Hassan Nasrallah. I just put the facts on the table.
It's fine that we support the same team, him and me. I'm sure he's happy.
Yes. So
So
we're
am I.
moving to... I know. We're moving to tennis.
Tennis, Roger Federer at 33. How good is he? Well, he's now in the final of Cincinnati. Just a week after he played in the final of the Rogers Cup in Toronto. All this just a week ahead of the U.S. Open, which he won 5 times. People already, for 2 years, I've been hearing, actually I've been a bit saying myself, maybe his time is up. Maybe Djokovic and Nadal and these guys are better than him. He's just there. He just wouldn't go. And if he made it to 2 successive finals in the warm-up season to the U.S. Open, he may win the title in Cincinnati. He's just as good, apparently.
I wanted to talk with you about Usain Bolt and Rio de Janeiro, but not. Some other time. Thank you very much for this. Small break, 2 minutes, and I'll be back.